Welcome to episode number 142 of the Marine Layer podcast. We're going to have a real conversation about Julio Rodriguez here on this episode. I don't know if we really want to have it, but we have to have it. The sample size has been too long. We'll get into it. We also have a couple of updates for you guys, really fun updates regarding this show that you'll want to stay tuned for.
Here's your guys' reminder before we start this show. Stay on top of all of our stuff. Make sure to download these podcast episodes. That's on the audio platforms. Make sure to leave a 5-star review, all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on the video. Drop us a comment. And then on social media, you can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here on Monday, July 1st. Well, happy summer. And now I know you're not a huge fan of off days, but given how the Mariners have been playing, I think it's actually a plus at this point for you.
Yeah, I think everybody needed another off day, which is exactly how we started the show for Friday, saying everybody needed that off day Thursday. But all of a sudden, 3 days later, I think people need another off day because we tabbed that series against the Twins as possibly the worst offensive series of the year, and I don't think that's all that far-fetched.
No, it's not, and I heard this conversation floating around the internet of what really, are we getting to the point where this is the worst offense in club history? Because we said worst offense in the worst offensive series of the season, and they had opportunities. They still had 9 hits on Sunday. But it didn't matter because they couldn't hit with anyone in runners in scoring position. And the only runs the Mariners got all game were by Twins' mistakes on routine plays. Balls that wouldn't leave the infield, or balls that got hit into the air directly to Byron Buxton, which he dropped. So, like things like that. But then the discussion went past that, where, okay, we're halfway through this season. Are we allowed to tab this as one of the worst in history, if not the worst? There are some other ones that we can name. The 2010 offense, Lyle, was awful. less talent. Pretty bad. But people were pointing out, batting average-wise, which, flawed stat, yes, this team is worse than that one is. And
not good. Oh, I thought you were about to finish a sentence there. But yeah, not good. Not good at all. Somebody has got to turn this around. Mitch Garver had a good June. Luke Raley's been solid. But somebody has to anchor this thing for the offense. Somebody has to get going so it's contagious for everybody else to get going. I don't know who that's going to be, but it's going to need to happen sooner rather than later here. Also, shout out to Luke Raley. He didn't even sugarcoat anything. I don't know if you saw his post-game comments on Sunday, but he was like, our offense and our at-bats with runners in scoring position, he said, has been atrocious. So he's not sugarcoating it. He knows. The guys in that locker room know. And Luke Raley's a crazy hard worker. He really is. And I think he recognizes what's going on like everybody else does. So the question is just, when are the players themselves going to start to turn this thing around?
And think about, from Raley's perspective, he had a good day on Sunday. He was one of the most productive hitters in the lineup. But he steps to the plate and he has an opportunity and he doesn't come through. And he's pissed about it. Mm-hmm. And that's not even, again, counting the guys who are struggling in the lineup. Or the fact that the Mariners lose a key offensive piece on Sunday in Mitch Garver, which led to Luis Castillo hitting in that game, which his numbers didn't actually look too much different than the rest of the lineup, unfortunately.
Well, that's how you started that Sunday reaction. You're like, if you want a synopsis of the Mariners offense this year, here it is in one photo. And it was Luis in the batter's box.
How do you look? He looks kind of odd with a batting helmet. He just doesn't look like a hitter. Which, yeah, no shit, TJ. He's a pitcher. But there are some pitchers, Zach Greinke, Jake Arrieta, step in the box. You know, they could swing it. Felix, grand slam to his name. Luis Castillo, I mean, even when the National League let pitchers hit, and Luis has had some hits in his career, don't know if I see it.
I saw our friend Jordan Schusterman tweet out a highlight of Luis when he was with the Reds hitting a one-hop double off the center field wall at Busch Stadium against the Cardinals a few years back, but it was also a few years ago. For everybody that was somehow mad about the fact Luis Castillo didn't go up there and swing or bunt, chill out, people. Because guess what? If he takes a bunt foul ball off the face and then all of a sudden he can't pitch, I guarantee you all the same people that were mad that he wasn't bunting all of a sudden would have turned their anger to, well, why was he bunting? Why didn't he just stand there and not swing? So the Mariners made the right call with that one. Believe it or not, for all of you that are mad about it.
My favorite line of all that was, in terms of the replies, was, he's a professional. Of course he should be able to bunt. So I'm thinking, like, a professional? Well, yeah, he throws a ball hard. When was the last time do you think Luis Castillo picked up a bat? Honestly, when do you think?
Not since 2020.
Yeah. Or, no, they didn't pick up bats in 2020, so it would have been 21. But, I mean, I'm even talking about, like, joking around. Do you think, like, this calendar year of 2024, he has physically picked up a bat? Like, even to hold it in his hands.
Why would he?
Right.
No.
Exactly. But, yeah, Joe Ryan's up there throwing in the 90s. Put a bunt down.
Incredible stuff. Really, really incredible stuff, I got to say.
It is. We do have a couple of big announcements that we want to start off this episode with before we talk about Julio Rodriguez. Up first, Lyle and I have the pleasure this Friday, July 5th, to be hosting on 710 Seattle Sports, and we'll be hosting Brock and Salk on Friday from 7 to 10 a.m. We get to fill in for them on a holiday weekend. We're extremely excited about it. We announced it on Monday, so if you hadn't already seen it and you're popping this podcast in and listening to it, yes, Lyle and I will be keeping up the regular programming schedule with a Wednesday episode, a Friday episode, but we will also be live on the radio from 7 to 10 a.m. hosting Brock and Salk on Friday. I'm super pumped about this, Lyle. Do you know why? Not only is this a massive platform for us, it is. Like, Seattle Sports is one of the biggest sports brand, if not the biggest sports, I guess, media brand in the Northwest, which is crazy in of itself that, again, we get to host a show on there. The Brock and Salk show is one of the most successful sports shows the Pacific Northwest has seen, which is also another, wow, that's a pretty cool moment, and that's the show we get to host. But also, you finally get to come into my element, buddy. Mm-hmm. This is my living right now on the radio. Now, it's a little quiet here during the summer, but, you know, live radio when I'm not sitting here on this podcast is my thing. And now we get to do it for 3 whole hours together on Friday. So we've been in this zone together here, but now you're coming into my zone, buddy.
Yeah, I am. I said to you the other day that we hadn't even really given it much thought until we had the realization of all the podcast episodes we've done and all the live streams we've done, because this is podcast episode 142. 0 of them have been in person. So this will be the first live show the two of us have done together in affiliation with this podcast. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, like the fact that they wanted us to fill in and do this for a day is awesome. Like, the two of us grew up listening to Brock and Salk and grew up listening to Seattle sports, like whether it was driving to school or just in the car with your family, wherever you were. Like, this was always the station we had on, not to mention listening to Rick Riz and Dave Niehaus all these years, listening to Mariner games. Like, this is the station we grew up on. So to sit in those chairs feels pretty wild. Maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, but that's not to say we're not really fired up about it and we're not going to have a blast on Friday doing it. So there's not much to say other than, like, thanks to the people letting us do this. And honestly, like, maybe on an equal level too, if not more than that, like, thank you to all you guys. Because if all of you guys didn't sit here and support us and listen to the two of us talk on a regular basis, we wouldn't be doing this. So this is just as much your guys' accomplishment and a testament to you guys as it is to us.
And we hope you guys, you know, listen in and contribute, send some texts in on Friday while we're live. I mean, we'll be reading texts. I'm hoping we get a caller segment so we can get some people on the air too. Like, I think that'll be fun. Like, we're going to try and put some podcast elements that we do here on this show on that show as well. We're also going to be doing all the regulars on Brock and Salk as well, what they do. I'm excited to rank. Ranking's going to be fun. And we get to do it. We get to do it all. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, Lyle, I've told you that once like you're live on the air, like there's no screwing up. We're recording here right now, but when you're live and there's no screw ups, I mean the adrenaline level kicks up a little bit and you feel it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's gonna bring some good energy out for the people that do have to work on that Friday after the 4th of July and have to commute to work and listen to us. I think you guys are going to have a blast. I think we're going to put together a really entertaining show, and it's super great. Thanks to Mike Salk, thanks to Brock Hewer, thanks to Kyle Brown, the program director, for having us. It's fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait. And let us be as clear as possible. While there will be segments from Brock and Salk that we will take part in, it's very much going to be the Marine Layer pod on Seattle Sports. So, like, you'll hear, like, the way you hear TJ and I talk and interact and have fun on this show, we're going to try to do something as similar to that as we can on Seattle Sports mixed in with some Brock and Salk. So, for example, are we going to be talking about a certain hike on Seattle Sports Radio?
Oh, it's coming up.
I think it might come up.
I think it's going to come up.
It might come up.
I think it's going to. The only thing I was worried about is that the Mariners would still be in first place at that point. I think they still will be, but regardless if they're in first place or not, it is coming up. We are going to work it in somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
Now, do we go? Are we doing Everest? Should we do Everest? Should we do Rainier?
Oh, so I think I've got a perfect solution now. I think This is the perfect medium. Just to spend 30 seconds on this. I've had a few people tell me that Mount Si is way too soft of a hike and you've got to find something else. I think the medium here is Mailbox Peak. It's a little steeper than Mount Si, still close enough where people were going to join in. They could join in, but you don't have to train for it and get certified and go in a group like you would with Mount Rainier. So I think Mailbox Peak is the perfect medium here. So I think that's what I'm going to go with. I think that's what I'm going to say on the show Friday too.
All right. Mailbox Peak. I don't think I've ever hiked it, so I'm going to have to look it up.
I haven't either. Well, you better get ready to hike it because when Kyle Tucker's a Mariner, you're going to be vlogging this along with me. So we're going to have content.
I will. I'm going to be fine on the hike. I'm worried about you. I hike.
Yeah.
You see me this weekend? I was out there training. Where were you?
Getting content at the ballpark. You're welcome.
Oh, were you walking up and down the stairs too? The legs won't train themselves.
Well,
you know what would be great content, dog? You go out to left field, you start walking up and down the bleachers, you get the vlog stick out, and you're like, training for Kyle Tucker, training for Kyle Tucker, training for Kyle Tucker, training for Kyle Tucker.
Well, that would be some good prep, I must say. Maybe next time if I can weave it into the schedule. But point being, like, I hope this right here shows you guys exactly what we're talking about. Like, we're gonna bring this to Seattle Sports Radio. Like, we want to show you guys, like, it's going to be us. We're just on a different platform and a different medium. So yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So
very
7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Friday, Seattle Sports. You can listen on their app, the Seattle Sports app. You can listen on seattlesports.com. You can listen on the radio. You can listen on the podcast as well. We're going to try and get some clips from that show and post it on our own channels. I don't think we're going to get the show to post on our channel, but we will get some clips to post on our socials, which will be good. So in case you missed it and you haven't seen it, we're hoping to get to post some of those after the show is over. The other bit of news... Well,
I was going to say, I think we will be able to do that. And last thing, speaking of vlogs, we are for sure, certainty, going to vlog that day because we'll be hosting the show, and then we're also going to be at the ballpark that night for the Blue Jays series and in the afternoon doing content and all that stuff. So if you want to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of what goes into us hosting the show that day and what we're up to and what goes into it all, we're going to do a vlog about it. So keep an eye out for that.
Dude, I'm going to need an app to deal with Blue Jays fans. Most importantly, our friend Troy in the pen. I'm going to need a real power nap to rest up and get ready for the 35,000 Canadians.
Our friend Troy last year gave us the most electric fan clip we've ever had, who's a Blue Jays fan. We asked him about invading the park, and he just went in. We're going to get him back on the mic, we hope, this year, as long as he's at a game. But that's for this weekend. We do have another update, so I'll let you tee up for that.
Second bit of news. We're going to All-Star Week in Dallas.
Woo!
So, yes, we'll be jumping on a plane, and we'll be flying to Dallas, Texas. We land Saturday morning, and we'll be staying through the entirety of the All-Star festivities through Tuesday, and then we'll be leaving on Wednesday. Excited. We're going to do a ton of content while we're there, get a lot of fan content, trying to get on the field. We'll try. We're trying. So even if that doesn't work out, we're hoping to meet a bunch of people. If some of you guys are out there, maybe some of you live in Dallas. Hopefully, that would be a great reach. Come say hello, get to meet you guys. If you're traveling to Dallas for the All-Star game, it would be hope to run into all you guys and hoping to do some fun content along the way and meet some of the baseball community, which will be really fun. So we're looking forward to that, and that's coming up in about 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks from today. We'll be in Dallas.
Busy July for us. We got Brock and Salk. We got home games for the Mariners to do content, do a bunch of stuff at. Then we're going to All-Star Week, and I say busy in the best of ways because I'm looking forward to these next couple weeks more than I can even speak on.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I've been in a different city it'll be 6 technically consecutive weekends.
I don't think
it could be 7 technically. So it'd be Corvallis, Seattle, Nashville, Corvallis, Seattle, Dallas, Corvallis.
Oh.
It's 8, I think, actually. Yeah. Wow, not bad. It's busy, yeah. So, hey, this is what we like. This is supposed to be my slow season, but it ain't slow anymore. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be an entertaining product. I've never been to Dallas. Even if it's not baseball, Lyle, I'm excited to see Jerry World from the outside. I've seen it a lot on TV. And it'll be right there next to the All-Star Village. So I think that'll be pretty cool, and it'll be pretty cool to get back there for All-Star Week.
Yeah, I've never been to Dallas either, so I'm excited. Like I said, we are going to be busy in the best of ways. Like I said, I could not be looking forward to these next couple weeks more. So if you're going to be at All-Star Week, just how we always say, if you happen to be at the ballpark and you see us or we're going to be there, flag us down. Same thing. If you are going to be in Dallas for All-Star Week, please let us know because we're, 1, looking to do content with people, and 2, even more than that, we're just looking to meet up with people, talk to people, do a bunch of different stuff. So if you're going to be there, tell us. I would say that wraps up our updates here. We're going to get into the bulk of the show here in just a minute. Before that, let's take a pause here. We're going to talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagac's Pub 85. That's your go-to spot in Kirkland. If you need a place to, you don't have to just be in Kirkland. You can be anywhere here on the east side in Seattle, and you want a good spot to go hang out with your friends and watch the games. There's 20 TVs in the place. There's great food. There's pool and darts if you want to do that, or if you want to just sit and watch some sporting events. Guess what? There's more than 20 TVs in that place. So everything you need is over there. There's also great drink specials for happy hour, Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. It's $3 and $4 drinks. So all of that, everything you need, it's over at Pagac's Pub 85 in Kirkland. So the bulk of the show. I think we've been talking about this potential episode occurring now for a few weeks. We were hoping things would turn around. We were hoping we wouldn't have to do this show. And let's say that to start. We don't want to be having this conversation. We really don't. This is not going to be a fun conversation to have because I don't think anybody wishes anything other than Julio Rodriguez was in the MVP race and in the thick of it right now. That's not happening. And the sample size has now gotten large enough where we have to sit here and ask some real questions about the Mariners center fielder.
I think so. We set a benchmark at the beginning of this month when Julio had a tough first 2 months. We set a benchmark that he had to hit for us to not do this episode. He fell pretty well short of that. So here we are today having this conversation. And the question, Lyle, we have a question that needs to be asked, and I don't think people don't want to hear what the answer is. Is Julio Rodriguez a superstar?
It's hard to make an argument that he is right now. Where do we even want to start with this? There's going to be a lot of layers to this conversation. If you want to just start with his season numbers, 625 OPS on the year, 7 homers, 84 WRC plus. He also, in the last week, to magnify this thing even more, in his last 7 games, put up a 188 OPS. That's a real stat. Not batting average, not on base percentage, 188 OPS.
And it would be so easy to when you heard that question I proposed, asking if he's a superstar, to say, okay, you guys are over it. He's having a bad year. This is a bit of an overreaction to a bad season. When you take a look at Julio Rodriguez, who had a 146 WRC plus as a rookie, 126 last year, and he's down to 84 this year. Said, okay, so he's been great, good, and bad in his 3 seasons. Guys, stop overreacting. This is a ridiculous question. He just has some mechanical flaws, which he does, right? This isn't why Julio Rodriguez has been bad this season. We could spend a whole nother episode trying to figure out why he's been so bad. We've tried to talk about it. He's got a swing coach in town this week trying to help him fix it, and I hope it does. Because, frankly, the Mariners are not good without him being good. They are not good enough without Julio Rodriguez being what he was in 2022. That's what we want from Julio Rodriguez, but he's not. But here's some cold, hard facts about what Julio Rodriguez is. He has played 15 months as a big leaguer. He has been, by WRC Plus, a good to great hitter 7 of those months. Good to great, meaning 110 to 125 being good, and that's by months, by the way. 110 to 125 is good. 125 or greater is great. He has had 7 months in his big league career with a WRC plus of at least 110. He has had 8 months in his career with an average to bad WRC plus in a month. That is 109 or worse total. The average ones is 109 to 100. Bad is 99 or less. Let me say that again. He has played 15 months in a Major League Baseball uniform. 7 of those months, he has been a good to great hitter. 8 of those months, he has been either average or bad. That's not a superstar. I'm sorry. That's not superstar production.
And speaking of production, if somebody's going to say, well, look, he still finished 4th in MVP voting last year. He still had nearly a 6 WAR season. He still put up a WRC plus close to 130. That's all true. And we know he's a great defender and we know he's fast. So he's always going to have that to his game. But his numbers are a little skewed from last year. And here's what I mean. Julio Rodriguez had 5 weeks last year where he was hotter than the sun. Like, it was scorched earth hot. From July 25th till the end of August, he was the second best hitter in baseball. In that time, he hit 414, 1192 OPS, and a 230 WRC plus from late July till the end of August. That only trailed Mookie Betts, which, by the way, Mookie Betts put up a 252 WRC plus in that stretch. Good Lord. So, outside of those 5 weeks, it's been pretty brutal in terms of his offensive production from the start of 2023 until now. And here's how I want to break it down. Right? If you look at there's a couple layers to this. If you look at Julio Rodriguez from the start of 2023 till this very second, he has a 112 WRC plus and a 753 OPS in that time period. That ranks 58th in baseball in that time. Here's some names that also put up a 112, which, by the way, that 112 number includes his 5 insane weeks. He is right in the same category as Nathaniel Lowe, as Andrew McCutchen, and he is 1% behind Teoscar Hernandez. So there's more to go into this, but like when you hear that, when you hear he's the 58th best hitter in baseball since the start of 2023, like I'll ask you, like what does that say?
A fine hitter with great defense, which is what he is. Well, not right now, actually. He's not a fine hitter. But that sample size says fine hitter, could be valuable with great tools and great defense. That's what he is.
Right.
But superstar, no. He was a superstar his rookie year. No, like that. We're not like that rookie year was superstar play. Everything after that point has not been. And well, you say, well, that's nitpicking. Well, that's the majority of his career now. There's more months after his rookie season than there was in his rookie season right now. We're talking a year and a half versus one rookie year.
Look, and from May and on in his rookie season, he was one of the 5 best hitters in baseball by the numbers. That is a fact. He was that good. He was a superstar as a rookie. It hasn't been the same since 23. So I just gave you the broad outlook of start of 23 till right now. I'm going to tighten the lens a little bit. From the start of 2023 until July 24th of 2023. So right before that 5-week hot stretch started. Julio had a 100 WRC+. He had a 709 OPS in that stretch. So right at league average. That ranked tied for 95th in all of baseball in that time span. The names that he was next to during that stretch: Brian De La Cruz, Jonathan India, Andrew Benintendi, Kyle Schwarber. Those are not superstars. I don't even know if those guys qualify as stars. They are productive players on middling teams.
Are they good players?
Is that fair?
Are they even good?
They are above average, maybe. Above average?
Really? 100?
Well, no. 100. Okay, 100's league average. I like all factoring in. Like Jonathan India's been hot recently, so I don't know how you want to qualify him. So.
Well, and over what those numbers tell me is like average players, but like recently, those numbers you're accounting for are not including recent time.
Right. No, that is by definition league average. 100 WRC+. That's a league average player. So he does that right up until that really hot 5-week stretch, where again he was the second best hitter in baseball over those 5 weeks behind Mookie. That is what propelled him to finish fourth in MVP, because then when you look at the start of September of 2023 until now, which is when he started to cool off, from that time, Julio Rodriguez has a 663 OPS and an 89 WRC+. The names he is in bunch with in that time stretch: Jeff McNeil, who has not been a favorite in Mets world this year by any stretch; Nolan Schanuel, Sal Frelick, Gavin Sheets is a spot ahead of him with a 90 WRC+. These are the names that Julio Rodriguez is centered around from September of last year until now. So, he had 5 great weeks from the end of July till the end of August. But outside of that, again, like, this isn't a fun conversation to have. Like, I hate to say this, but what those numbers say is outside of those 5 weeks, he has been a below average hitter since the start of 2023.
I think this is a good transition into it, not player comps, but who Julio is, I'd say, related to over these stretches of time. Let's get the ultra elephant out of the room that I tweeted about earlier today that directly relates to this franchise, and that I don't know if you would have paraded it, but it would have been good for the franchise if you would have told everybody in 2022 that this would be the case this year, not mentioning what teams these players are on. In case you weren't aware, since the start of the 2023 season, Julio Rodriguez and Jared Kelenic are the exact same offensive player. They each have a 112 WRC+. These two players are portrayed completely different. Julio got the mega extension. Kelenic got salary dumped. Jared Kelenic gets called up in 2021, has one of the worst starts to a career you could ever have. He was horrendous to come up in the 2021 and 2022 seasons. Julio comes up in 2022, lights the world on fire, and you and I are sitting here, our jaws are on the floor. But after that all cleared up, after Jared's tough start and Julio's rocket ship rookie season, outside of Julio's better defense in center field, they're the same player. They're the same player. And remember, folks, they were right next to each other in the prospect rankings when they were in the Mariners system. They were right next to each other then, and here we are, July 1st, 2024, recording this podcast episode, and they are right smack dab next to each other again. Again. Like, this has happened to this extent in the two portrayals of these players, and there's really not all that much difference.
Is there one person in the baseball world right now that would call Jared Kelenic a superstar? Even me, like one of his biggest fans on earth. You can't call that guy a superstar. He hasn't earned it. He's had a good season this year. It hasn't been a superstar season, and you just outlined it. Offensively, these two are the exact same players since the start of 2023. And if Jared Kelenic's not a superstar, which I don't think anybody's calling him, I don't know how in the world you call Julio a superstar. I just don't know how you do it. The offense doesn't speak for itself.
Even off the superstar point here for a second, I'm just thinking of how these players have been treated over that same stretch. Jared had one of the all-time fuck-ups that he could have in his career. When he kicked the water cooler, he broke his foot when he was turning it around, and he missed a big chunk of time, and it probably contributed costing his team a playoff spot. Contributed, because they could have used his continuity in that lineup and in the clubhouse, but he wasn't there. But a lot of the fans don't like Jared. Period. And some of that was because of that. Some of that is because when he came up, he was brash, he was outspoken, he's good looking. Sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. And then you come up and you suck right away. Some people just write you off right there, and they look for any excuse to trash you. Any excuse. And maybe it created some ill will online. Perhaps. I don't know. I do know that, or it was pretty evident publicly that there was ill will within the Mariners organization for Jared Kelenic, in the sense that the two parties were not compatible, and was a reason why he got traded this offseason. That wasn't the case for Julio. He was more universally loved by the fan base and still is. He got the massive, potentially $470 million contract, which we'll talk about here in the segment eventually, after his rookie season. He gets, all the PR. He's got like a public relationship with that's famous. Like all of the stuff that comes in. Two completely different portrayals of two former Mariners top prospects in those 2021 prospect rankings. And here we sit, July 1st, and we're at the starting point again.
Yeah, if you want to add a little more context to that, Julio's got all the endorsement deals. He had a chance to be on the cover of MLB The Show they talked about. He's one of the faces of baseball at this point with how they market him. He was on The Shop with LeBron, for example. Again, I know this isn't exact. I know this is a little bit apples and oranges, but for anybody that's seen The Shop and the people LeBron has on that show, could you imagine if Jared Kelenic showed up on The Shop one day?
People will be wondering why he's there.
Yeah. And again, it's not a totally fair comparison, but again, what you're outlining here is these two guys offensively have been the same player for the last year and a half, and they are not even remotely looked at in the same way. Part of that is the personality. Part of that is some things outside of baseball. Sure. Part of that could be how they were perceived in the clubhouse. We don't know exactly how Kelenic was perceived in the clubhouse. We do seem to know that Julio is pretty universally loved. But yeah, just by production, same player. They have offensively been the same player.
And isn't it a little heartbreaking? Because, if a lot of us feel that Kelenic should still be a Mariner and that he still should have gotten an opportunity, especially you.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know we thought there was going to be some changes to the roster this offseason, but I was pretty shocked when he got traded. I know not everybody was, but I was pretty shocked. We all kind of had our jaw on the floor that night when we got the passing notification that he was just gone, because it wasn't like there was rumblings about it. It just kind of happened. Yeah. And what person doesn't want Jared Kelenic on the Mariners right now? Because he'd be their best player. Right now, he's their best player.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I have some more comps.
Yeah.
So these are guys that Julio debuted with that we can confidently say are superstars, that debuted the same year he did. They were all in the top 3 of the MLB pipeline rankings, prospect rankings. The 3 is Julio, Gunnar Henderson, that is, Bobby Witt Jr. Trajectory-wise, Julio had the best first season of all of them. He had a 146 WRC+, 5.7 wins above replacement. Gunnar, 128, was worth less than 1 win in just 34 games. Bobby Witt was a below-league average hitter by WRC+, was worth 2.5 Fangraphs wins. But then Julio goes down to 126 in year 2, 5.5 wins above replacement. Gunnar Henderson, a 123 WRC+, but he was worth 4.5 in his age 22 season. And Bobby Witt improved a little bit, especially defensively, with a 115 WRC+, and was worth nearly 6 Fangraphs wins above replacement in year 2. Now in year 3, when you're really supposed to see prospect breakout, Julio's having the season he is. Gunnar Henderson right now, with his 180 WRC+, has amassed more Fangraphs wins above replacement, a little bit past the halfway point of the season, than Julio has in a season yet. He's at 6.1 right now. And then Bobby Witt's having an unbelievable year as well. 141 WRC plus, 4.6 Fangraphs wins above replacement. So they all debuted in their early 20s, all high school / international players, all were in the top 4 of the same prospect ranking, all debuted in 2022, all are in their 3rd major league season this year, all are tasked with being at the forefront of their respective franchises. And there's a stark difference between the 3.
And did you mention all 3 of them are all 23 years old as well?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Which, quick side note for a minute, Gunnar Henderson has a 6 WAR on July 1st. There's 3 months to go in the season. This dude's on pace for 12 wins. Are you kidding? Like, he's like, dude, like Gunnar Henderson's going to come into town this week. And as we saw when the Mariners played him in Baltimore, like that dude is a superstar by every sense of the word. He does it with the glove. He does it with the bat. He doesn't strike out a lot. He walks at a decent rate. He's got, he's got close to 30 homers already. It's July 1st. This guy has, I don't want to say carried the Orioles because top to bottom, it's a really good roster, but like that's an MVP candidate right there. Like it's probably Judge. Judge is probably the winner if the season ended today. Isn't Gunnar right behind him? I think so.
It's going to be close. It's going to be close. I do want to note in this prospect class, Lyle, it's not all slam dunks. The guys I used were, I think, the 2 best players in this rookie class. Adley Rutschman is also in that rookie class as well, but I didn't include him in here. He's a bit of an older player. He's a college player, so different vibe. Because overall, there's other guys in that top 5 that haven't totally worked out. Spencer Torkelson's right now in AAA because he can't figure it out. Riley Green has been good this year, worth 5.5 wins in a little over 2 seasons. He's got a 136 WRC plus this season. He was the number 4 prospect in the preseason rankings, or number 5, sorry, in the preseason rankings, and was supposed to be a Julio-like prospect coming up. He hasn't been quite as good. So it's not all slam dunks, but these 3 guys were good to compare because, again, they're all 21 when they debuted. They all debuted in 2022. They're all at the front of their franchises. They all play premium positions. 2 of them are progressing a little bit more naturally than Julio, who's right now going the opposite direction.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And it's not a fun conversation to have, but we see Gunnar putting up 6 wins right now. I think we're all sitting here thinking this is what we all thought Julio was going to be doing. Julio was going to be the 6-win player. He'd have 30 homers at the All-Star break. He'd be fighting Judge for an MVP spot, but it's not happening right now.
Like, what does the Mariners' offense look like if he had Gunnar Henderson's season right now?
I mean, not only is it way leveled up, and they probably have more than a 3-game lead at the time of recording this podcast, but I bet you a bunch of other guys' numbers look a lot better. Because if Julio is such a threat, other guys have to see more pitches. I'm not saying Jorge Polanco would 100% be fixed. His numbers could be a little bit better. Maybe JP's numbers are a little bit better. Maybe Garver wouldn't have gotten off to the slowest start. We can't say that for certain. But when you have an anchor like that in an offense, it changes things. It's not a coincidence that the rest of the Orioles offense is as good as it is. Now, there's some phenomenal other hitters in that lineup, and that is a part of the reason why they're so good. But don't you think Gunnar Henderson setting the table the way he does has only helped the rest of the lineup? I think so. Don't you think Bobby Witt Jr. setting the table for the Royals has helped the rest of the lineup? I think so.
I saw some bad faith tweets online that will go unnamed today regarding the Mariners' offense, which has been terrible, or bad offense for a reason. And Julio's a huge part of why they are so bad. But again, the way these messages were perceived was that the Mariners are doing exactly what they should be right now. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, Julio should be worth at least 3.5 to 4 wins right now with a 130 WRC plus. That's what he should be doing based on what his talent is. So how is that, like, how are we on expectations right now? How are the Mariners on expectation right now? How's the offense doing exactly what they should right now?
They're not.
It's not. Like, this is what should be happening right now. And this is where us as Mariner fans will get riled up about this, because I do have one more, like, I'd say big point about all of this. when it comes to Julio and the importance of him needing, of him needing to be good. Like, he needs to be good for this all to work out, for us to have enjoyable baseball to watch in October. There is no other option for this. He needs to be Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt. He's paid to be that way. And based on everything the Mariners have put on his plate and the talent he has, like, there is no other option.
We talked about this a little bit, and I'll bring it up now, because while we're on the topic of Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, and for this example, I'll use Gunnar, because Gunnar doesn't have a big contract yet. But 23 years old, he's lighting the world on fire, he's in the MVP race. If there was another 23-year-old, even with the pedigree of a Julio, of a Gunnar Henderson, etc., if they were playing like this and didn't have this contract attached to them, like, what would it look like right now? Where would they be?
Tacoma?
That's what I mean. Now let's make this clear. Julio Rodriguez isn't going to the minor leagues. That's not happening. They're never and we're not saying it should happen. But if Gunnar Henderson currently had an 84 WRC plus for the Orioles right now, I think you might see him in Norfolk. I think that's a real argument you can make. If Gunnar Henderson at 23 years old was 16% below league average as a hitter right now, the Orioles might be saying he needs a little bit more time. Now, that's not going to happen with Julio. Again, we're not saying it should happen with Julio. We're just making a point here. And if you want to use another example, the name we're about to use is nowhere near the pedigree of the three we've been on the topic of: Julio, Henderson, Witt. But I want to use Edward Julien as an example, especially because the Twins were just in town and he was not present. Why? He was sent back to the minor leagues. Edward Julien is not on the major league roster right now. Now, he's 25. The other three are 23. But the point here still stands. Edward Julien is somebody that the Twins view as a real piece of their future. A second baseman with power who can really hit and is going to be one of the anchors in their lineup if everything pans out for the guy. And we've seen it in flashes already since he's been up. But he was sent back to the minors. Edward Julien has a 97 WRC plus for the year and an 0.9 Fangraphs WAR. Julio Rodriguez for the year has an 84 WRC plus and an 0.8 Fangraphs WAR. Julio's been a worse player than Edward Julien this year. Julian's in the minors. I'm not saying Julio should go to the minors, but I think it does speak some volumes to, again, there are a lot of other 23-year-old players out there right now that if they were playing like this, you may see them get optioned. I don't think it's going to happen with Julio, but you'd see it with other guys.
We saw it with Kelnick.
Mm-hmm.
With the
right.
worse offensive production, but that is what happened. And it would make sense because he would be under no pressure to perform in Tacoma. He would literally just need to fix his swing. That's it. And why not go hit in the PCL? It does not benefit the Mariners right now to send him down there because then they get significantly worse in center field and their already bad lineup loses its highest upside, period. So that's not going to happen. But to sit here and I'd say blindly say that a 23-year-old with an 84 WRC plus has no shot of going to Tacoma would be a little naive on whoever says that. So
yeah. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they'd ever do that.
No, it's not. And he could go down and destroy AAA because AAA pitching sucks. So what does he gain from that? The issues with big league breaking balls would still remain.
Right. Again, let's make this clear. We are not suggesting he should be sent down. We're just saying there's a lot of cases out there where you might see other players, unfortunately, have to go through that. Again, we use the Julien example because even though he's a little bit older, hasn't had as much time in the big leagues as Julio, he's, by the numbers, had a better year so far. Now, Jackson Holliday, another example, he's had nowhere near the amount of sample that Julio has. Holliday's only had 50 at-bats or so, and he wasn't hitting well, they sent him back. But that was a guy that everybody figured he's just going to come up, light the world on fire, and he'll never go back. But Orioles sent him back. Wasn't ready. Now, that's not as good of an example as somebody like Julien. I'm just saying, another high pedigree prospect, number one prospect in baseball. Everybody thought he's never going to turn back. He went back to the minors. So, yeah.
There's one other thing about this.
Yeah.
one other thing I have about this, and this relates to Mariners history. When you think of talent in Mariners history, and I think of the three most purely like God-given talent Mariners hitters of all time. Griffey's 1, A-Rod's 2, Julio Rodriguez is 3. And before someone attacks me about leaving Edgar Martinez about there, Edgar took a while to figure it out. I'm talking about steps on the baseball diamond and has it. Edgar had to work his ass off to make things work. So, Edgar Martinez, Hall of Famer, the greatest DH of all time, but we're talking about stepping on the field as a near teenager and being the best player on the field. It goes Griffey, it goes A-Rod, it goes Julio Rodriguez. That's the kind, like, that's not an unfair expectation to hold Julio Rodriguez to. When we're sitting, and it has been 20 years since the Mariners had made a playoff game, and he steps on the field as a guy here locally in Corvallis. And I went on the radio before the opener when he debuted, and I said they have not had a prospect like this since Alex Rodriguez, talent-wise. They have not. And I think this still checks out, talent-wise. But then to look at their age 23 seasons, A-Rod at a 136 WRC plus in his age 23 season, 4.5 Fangraphs wins above replacement. Griffey was worth 8.5 wins as a 23-year-old. And Julio Rodriguez is doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm just my heart's breaking.
I know.
Like,
yes.
We have been through the damn ringer watching this baseball team in this franchise year after year after year, and we get the most talented player to step on the field in the 2000s in Julio Rodriguez. Step on the field. We'll throw A-Rod out when he was a Mariner in 2000. Throw that out. But everyone else, Julio Rodriguez steps on the field 2022, and he is the most talented player you have had in 2 decades on the field. And the fact that less than 3 years later, we're sitting here having this conversation. Like, this should not have happened. Like, we have been through too much for this to be the case.
Not only should it not happen, it can't happen because they've invested way too much money in him. Like, ownerships talk about, like, I've heard Divish and Adam Jude talk about on Extra Innings when the offseason was going on and they had to ask the questions about spending money and going out and getting free agents. The answer that ownership oftentimes gave was, listen, we've invested a lot of resources into our superstar center fielder, and as a result of that, because of that contract, we can't go out and just spend all the money in the world. Now, that's a whole other conversation itself. We could get into how they could spend a lot more money, but this is a Julio topic. If your quote-unquote superstar center fielder's got an 84 WRC plus and is OPSing 620, then, like I mean, obviously, you're starting to have worries about the contract, but and we've somehow gotten to this point in the show and not said this. Obviously, there's still a chance he could just hit the second half, turn it around, get really hot, and this is all forgotten about. And I think every single person is hoping that's exactly what happens because they really need it to happen. But if this continues, like, do the Mariners have to think about going out and spending significant money to go get another star? Now, they should do that anyway, but the answer should be unequivocally yes if this continues, especially if he has a whole year like this, Julio. Like, do you have to go out and try to spend on Juan Soto, which will probably never, ever happen, but the conversation is still fair because you need a true anchor superstar bat in the lineup. We talk about Kyle Tucker all the time. Why do you think we talk about him? Because he's one of the best hitters in baseball, and the Mariners need a lot of offense. So, like, the idea of trading for him, giving up whatever it takes, and then giving him a massive extension, because you need that guy in the lineup, that superstar, the guy that is always going to strike fear into the opponent's eyes because they can do damage at any point. That's supposed to be Julio. It's not happening right now. And to your point, like, you outlined what A-Rod and Griffey did at age 23. If you want to go even deeper into that, yeah, like Griffey had an 1025 OPS with 45 homers. A-Rod had his second consecutive 40 home run season at 23 years old. He had 42 home runs in back-to-back years. 943 OPS. Julio's at a 620 OPS. Like, if this continues, and I really hope it doesn't, again, this really has not been a fun conversation. We have to have it, but it's really not a fun conversation. If that continues to happen, like the Mariners organization has to come together and say, how do we fix this? We might have to go shell out the money to get another absolute superstar player. And Julio is second fiddle. He's the Robin to Juan Soto's Batman. He's the Robin to Kyle Tucker's Batman, because this iteration of the offense cannot continue. A lot of this offense depends on Julio being Julio. And if this is going to be a continuous trend, then there's all these people talking about, well, they have to go out and get a ton of new players. They have to change the entire lineup, which they obviously can't do. And because of that, not only will they not do that at the trade deadline, they will not change the entire roster in the offseason either. The easiest way to fix that is going to spend the money on an absolute elite level bat. They didn't probably feel like they needed it in the past because it was supposed to be built around Julio. But if this does not change, and I hope it does, they better be having as real conversations as ever about how in the world they put together all the money they have in the organization to go back up the Brinks trucks for Juan Soto, despite not knowing what their RSN deal looks like in the future. Because again, this offense cannot continue if you don't want to waste this pitching staff and you want this core to win a World Series.
All we want is, excuse me, all we want as Mariners fans is a World Series. That's it. Only franchise to never win one.
No, to never.
Only franchise to never be to a World Series. It's all we want.
Yeah.
It's all we've been focused on. That's all anyone ever wants. It is really hard to see this franchise winning a World Series with this roster if Julio Rodriguez is not a superstar. That is about as clean and cut and dry as I can put it. He needs to be a superstar for them to win a World Series. Even with this pitching staff, even with guys like Cal Raleigh, even with other exciting players on this roster. The only way they win a World Series is with Julio Rodriguez being a superstar. If he's what he's been since the start of last year, they will not win a World Series. And they will have to do what you said, and they will have to do things that they have never done in franchise history, and that's pay a guy like Juan Soto. And pay him probably over market. Because realistically, as a Scott Boras client, would Juan Soto ever want to come to play in Seattle? Ever. No,
why in the world
no shot.
I was going to say, if you're Juan Soto, how in the world are you thinking about anything right now other than staying a New York Yankee? That team has all the money in the world. It's the highest, it's the most historic franchise in baseball. They have all the championships. They're in the biggest city in the U.S., the biggest market in the U.S., and he's thriving there. That New York media and that New York pressure isn't phasing Juan Soto one bit. They love him. He is, there's not even a Batman and a Robin on that team. Him and Aaron Judge are both Batman. So Don't you think the Brian Cashman and the Steinbrenners are looking at that right now and saying, yeah, we shouldn't let that guy take 1 foot out of town. We're certainly not letting him go across town to Queens. We're certainly not letting him go back to D.C. We've got to keep him here. And if the Yankees say, we'll pay you $600 million, the only way Scott Boras says, hey, Juan Soto, I know you love New York. I know you prefer the East Coast, but I want you to go play for the Seattle Mariners all the way across the country, is if the Mariners say, well, I see your $600 million offer, Hal Steinbrenner. Here's $700 million. Here's $750 million, which the Mariners have never, ever even come a fraction close to doing with a free agent, and especially this regime has never done. So if you don't want to go shell out that type of money, then the core you've put together has to play like it, and it involves Julio playing like the guy that you paid him to be and not being an 84 WRC plus hitter.
And the Mariners don't have time to wait around for him to figure it out. This pitching staff is getting more expensive by the year. I saw the idea thrown out there today that maybe Julio is just the grizzled vet on a roster with the other players currently in this farm system that are actually the superstars. But if you sit here and think about it, how many pitchers would be left if that was the case? One?
So
maybe Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, but you wouldn't have two of Gilbert. Castillo would probably be gone. You would probably only have one of Gilbert or Kirby. I would say probably Gilbert would be here. And then I think Bryce and Brian would still have control at that point. Would they be in the rotation? Would they still be on the roster? Would they have gotten traded at that point? I don't know. There's nothing you could guarantee in that case. Like, the main reason the Mariners have a roster that can win a World Series right now is because of that pitching staff. But if you have to wait any length of time to adjust the roster or let your prospects develop so they can be the superstars instead of Julio, you're not winning anything.
There is a part of me that's honestly started to have some of these thoughts. And I hope it does not come true, that they have this idea that, okay, for the next couple of years, we can shoot to get into the playoffs and this rotation can take us on a run to win. And that's the way they assemble the roster based on the resources that they have, because as we know, they're not given an unlimited payroll budget. Jerry Just in the front office. Man, there's part of me that wonders if that's the route they're trying to go. And then they hope to get a couple of years where all these bats in the farm right now are up, paired with a couple years with this rotation still here before they all hit free agency. In other words, do you get 1 to 2 years of this rotation paired with, obviously Julio's still here, but then Colt Emerson, Felny, Celestine, Lazaro, Montez, Cole Young, those guys, and you hope that in that time you have an Orioles type season where all your young prospects are thriving at the plate and with good pitching, and you make a run. I really hope that's not the route they go, but there is a part of me that worries about that because you have no guarantee that all those guys, one, are going to pan out, and you don't know if Colt Emerson's going to be ready by age 21, by 22, by 23, as we're seeing with Julio.
Are we talking 2028?
Right, by ups and downs. Like, I hope that's not the route they're going for. I really do. And I think the last layer to hit on this, there's not a ton to do on this one because I think we've covered a lot, and I know we're getting close to the hour mark here, but there is the definition of what defines a superstar, right? And in Julio's contract, which in writing says he has the ability to make up to $470 million throughout the length of this deal, what that deal says and what the Mariners said by handing him that contract is, we believe and we expect you to be one of the game's elites for a long time. And what does the game's elites mean? That means you are in the conversation of the Judges, the Mookie Betts, the Ronald Acuñas, the Juan Sotos of the world. You can throw in some others. I'm not even including Shohei in this because he's such a unicorn that he's on his own. So those four guys, who all happen to be outfielders, by the way, he's supposed to be in that category. And I think it goes without saying that it's not even close right now. Aaron Judge's career low WRC plus in a full season is 141. In 2020, it was 140. That's his career low. Juan Soto's is 143. Acuña's is 115, but he followed that up the next year by winning the MVP. And Mookie Betts, which maybe we can compare a little bit here, his career low was 107 in terms of a WRC plus in a season. That was back in 2017, yet he still had nearly almost 5 wins above replacement. And he also wasn't expected to be the bat that Julio was expected to be. Now, Mookie's turned into the bat that people expected Julio to be, but he didn't start off that way. He wasn't expected to be some huge power guy. So without it, it almost goes unsaid. Those are the game's elites. Those are what they do. Those guys are all top 10 in baseball in WRC plus since the start of 2023, where Julio's 58th.
So the Mookie comp's the easiest one. He's like a Swiss Army knife. He was an infielder. He was an outfielder. His value was playing all over the place for the Red Sox. And I don't even think the Red Sox knew really what kind of hitter he was. He was a good hitter when he came up, but he was a lot of contact, some pull power over the monster. And then he has the 2018 season, the year after that career low season, where he wins the MVP, and he was unbelievable, that they realized, oh, he's got a little bit more in him. But Mookie was never a blue-chip prospect, so the expectations were never there. It rings back to what we talked about with Gary Hill last week. Julio plays under the light of expectations because of his prospect status, because of where he signed in the international campaign, for all the PR and the attention he got coming up through the minor leagues, for all the incredible things he did at the plate and in the field, his transformation from a corner outfielder to a superstar level, talent-wise, center fielder who could cover an insane amount of ground while also combining power that's only matched by a very few in Major League Baseball. Like, Mookie didn't have all of that. He's worked his tail off, and he's proven that he's had that otherwise. But for what we've seen from Julio, it's not been the Mookie case. Because Mookie came up, he hit it right away, and if Julio finished this season at 107, you and I would be doing backflips, because that means he'd have an insane second half. We're talking about a 20-point swing in WRC Plus over the second half of the season. It's not easy to do, to get up 20 points like that. Or sorry, it would be 23. 20 is shortchanging it. It's tough to look at, man. I like the Judge one. They're different, but both technically play center field. Both are supposed to be legitimate aircraft carriers in the middle of the lineup. And Aaron Judge was always very good, and then the last 3 seasons he has been a Hall of Famer, essentially. Mm-hmm. There is that fear when he steps to the plate that you don't want to face. You don't want him stepping to the plate. You're scared where the ball is going to go. Same with Juan Soto, same with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, all of these guys. Julio hasn't placed that fear in anyone in a year and a half.
Right. Outside of those 5 weeks in 2023, though that short little time span. And again, if you want the exact numbers, how I said, these guys are all top 10 in WRC Plus since the start of 23. Juan Soto's third. Let's just start with Judge. Judge leads all of baseball with a 192 over the last year and a half. Soto's third. Betts is fourth. Acuna's seventh, despite the 115 mark in 2022. Well, that was before this timeline. But yeah, Acuna's seventh. You want to throw some other names in there that are in that top 15-ish range that are after those guys? Like, or in the mix, I should say, in the mix. Jordan, Freddie Freeman, Bryce Harper, Corey Seager, Kyle Tucker, Gunnar Henderson, like we've obviously talked about. So not only is Julio not one of the game's elites right now in the Judge, Betts, Soto category, despite being paid like it, I don't even know how you make an argument how he's in the second tier right now with the Corey Seagers, the Gunnar Hendersons, if you want to call Kyle Tucker second tier, the Bryce Harpers. I'm not even sure how you could put him there. I don't think you can. And this sucks. I don't like this whole conversation has sucked. All I want is Julio to win the MVP. I want him to carry this team. I want him to bring him his first World Series. But we're sitting here having this conversation because the numbers are what they are. We're not making anything up. We're not falsely putting out numbers and stats or anything. This is what's in front of everybody. And we're just reading it, and it sucks, but it's the case.
This is also a warning to teams doing long pre-arb extensions. Because I think you and I, especially after Tatis got pinged for his PD suspension, he's come back and he's played very well. But Fernando Tatis, early in his career, signed a 14-year, $340 million contract. Then he has the motorcycle accident. Then he gets popped for PEDs. And I remember you and I sending some texts over this, couldn't be our superstar. It's exactly what we said. And here we now sit. The other example I threw out there, he who shall not be named from Tampa Bay, signed a 11-year, $182 million contract, which I doubt he'll get much of, given his situation. But a mess up on the Rays' part. I don't know if the Padres, I think, are fine with the Tatis extension still, but not. I don't know how much they trust him, to be honest. Not after all the stuff he's done and all the trouble he's gotten into. Then we have the Julio one, which you and I paraded at first, and now we look up at it. It's this thing can be a real anchor on any chance of success in the future, unless the parameters change monetarily.
Yeah, it's true. And we'll see what other guys may get long pre-arb extensions here in the future. But sure, you do wonder if other teams will look at how some of these deals have played out and be a little more hesitant going forward. Every player's different. It's tough to say. No organization knows. Nobody knows each player better than their own organization and the people that see them on a regular basis. But yeah, it is. It is a real conversation. It very well could make teams more hesitant. We'll see. And again, hopefully Julio just turns this thing around and we look back at this conversation in September and we're laughing. I really, really hope that's the case. But as we said at the start of this segment, it's gone on too long now. We didn't want to have the conversation. We weren't going to do it in April. We weren't even going to do it in May because we saw him turn it around last year, obviously, and have the really good August. But between the way he started last year, the way he ended last year, and now the first half of this year, it's only fair to bring it up. And I think a lot of people have questions right now. I know we certainly have questions for why the struggles have been this tough. And we're sitting here talking about it. Like, I know we're starting to wrap up most of our closing thoughts here and most of our final thoughts. But yeah, it hasn't been fun. And I really hope he turns this around because I don't want to keep having conversations like this. All I want is for him to be great and for him to carry this city to a World Series.
It would be naive of me to tell you to not be worried because, as we've highlighted here, we have a large sample of Julio underperforming. For his career, he has spent more time as a average to bad hitter than a good to great hitter, and that is concerning, especially for what the Mariners need him to be. There is almost no other option for the Mariners franchise, for us as Mariners fans, and for the success of the team than to him to be a superstar, because if he's not, we're talking about things that like are everyone's worst nightmare in terms of having someone who you think is the savior, and it turns out they're just not.
Right. No, it's true. And again, I'll say it again. I'm going to keep repeating it. Let's just hope he has a really good second half and can have everybody forget about this. I really hope that's what happens. Hopefully, the All-Star break gives him a little time to reset, to get refocused, and he comes out hot to start that series against the Astros and doesn't look back. But yeah, is that just about wrap up all our thoughts?
I think so.
A good hour on this, I think. Well,
I think
not
so.
Technically an hour. We didn't start the podcast with this, but yeah. Look, there's no one right answer to this. If you are out there and you have some of your own thoughts on what the situation is with Julio, if you feel differently about this, if you have your own opinions about this, tell us. You can leave a YouTube comment. You can DM us. You can let us know. How do you feel about the situation right now? How do you feel like it's going to unfold? How are you feeling about him right now as a player? Again, we don't have all the answers to this. We're not even necessarily saying everything we're saying is 100% correct. These are just our thoughts, the way we formulated these thoughts, and we're trying to use a lot of numbers to back it up. But if you have different thoughts, please let us know. We want it to be an open dialogue. I know everybody's having conversations about it right now, so we want to do the same, and we want you to do the same. So that's that. Okay, I think we're ready to end this episode because, again, I think we'd love to have some more positive conversations going forward. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully the Mariners have some good games this week. We have some positive things to talk about for Friday's podcast. And it's a much happier Friday episode. So yeah, with that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to download, leave a 5-star review, leave a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And then check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.